County at large.
Tom Houlihan, representing Mayor Stamwell, City of Rensselaer.
Scott Ricefeld of Scottsville.
Sandy Misowitz, Executive Director of the Capital Region Transportation Council. Okay.
Jim DeJoy, Public.
Howard Global, City of Albany. Mark Morris, Transportation Council. Great, what's your each one, do you? Jim Levy, Planning for Places.
Kathy Amber, planning for places. Mary Carrier, Emergency Transportation.
Okay, and then quickly listening virtually, we have Mayor Stafford from the City of Saratoga Springs. Virginia Bott from Rensselaer County, Chris Bauer from the Capital Region Transportation Council, Ken Lambert from Saratoga County, Michael Lally from Albany County, Nicole McGrath from the Federal Highway Administration, and Adam McCarville from the Transportation Council staff. Did I miss anyone listening virtually? Okay.
Great. So the first thing on the agenda is to hear from anyone here from the public who's here to speak. We don't have anyone registered. So we are going to move right into the presentation from DOT regarding the Reimagine 787 study.
Next. Room can hear well. Where are the, I guess it's a little, so let's see this. Folks online, can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
I'm gonna try, I have quite a few slides. I'm gonna try and make this brief. It's a lot of images, so I can run through it quick. A lot of folks here have seen this already. But yeah, we can start. The project schedule, here's the schedule of the Pell study. This isn't a schedule of everything that could be related in the future. We don't know what the future holds yet. But for the Pell study process, we are here near the end where the public comment period closed earlier this week. And our team is now feverishly rolling up all the comments received from everybody. And through the process, there'll be a response to every comment, whether it's addressing it or future consideration and future phases, however that, whatever best shakes out. A lot of themes in the comments that I don't have time to get into because there's numerous themes and numerous comments, but overall well received by the members of the study. Next. Of course, the public fed into the purpose and need statement, which is what creates the project objectives. This is a very high level. The purpose, need, and objectives chapter is chapter 2 of the draft report. It's probably close to 20 pages of discussion around this, but super brief. The needs are improved connectivity, address deficiencies in the infrastructure, address highway and road network inefficiencies, which can mean either the network is overbuilt and not efficient or underbuilt and not efficient. So mixed depending on where you're looking. And of course, address structural deficiencies. And then that feeds into the project objectives to address all those needs. Don't need to belabor these too long, but this is a quick synopsis of the objectives. Obviously, basically to address the needs identified prior. Next. So the objectives are what we used for the screening or the filter at which we pass the concepts through at this high level. The concepts that made it through, we'll get into. Well, basically the concepts that made it through are the 5 major highway concepts made it through the initial screening, and some other spin-off ideas made it through as well, but they're not identified as the major concepts. We'll get into those later. Sort of 2 buckets of concepts here, the major and then spin-off. The only one that oddly made it through, even though it has a whole bunch of red check boxes, it's not meeting the objectives, is the no build, because we have to carry that through any NEPA process for the people regulations. And so there's a little green checkbox next to a whole bunch of red X's. The no build. So we'll get into the first one that made it through. The first one is the Boulevard 1 option. It's the first boulevard we cooked up and presented. That basically consolidates the north and southbound traffic into a boulevard that's at grade where feasible, at grade intersections on the Albany side of the railroad tracks, freeing up a lot of, I guess, real estate on the riverside of the railroad tracks. The Dunn Memorial Bridge will be reconstructed with a new interchange. Very close to the existing alignment. And a common feature that starts here and carries through all of them in some form is the ability that traffic from the Dunn Memorial heading to the South Mall will come down to grade around South Pearl Street and then ride at grade into the Empire State Plaza Tunnel. Again, eliminating overhead infrastructure that exists there today. And for each of these, we tried to do some renderings to illustrate visually what this could look like from the air, because as much as that map paints a picture, this helps visualize it for the public. See where the Dunn was in this configuration, what it looked like in this concept in the future. And then I picked the one location in Rensselaer, looking from Broadway to Albany. And the trees sort of don't show it fantastic, but the existing infrastructure is much taller from this viewpoint today, so this shows a much improved view shed from Rensselaer side. And then Boulevard 2 is the second one to move forward. It's very, very similar to the first boulevard, with the exception that southbound traffic would be routed off at the Clinton Ave exit, and then Broadway would be converted to southbound boulevard through the city center. This is fueled by the idea to activate the city network to get more eyes on the downtown businesses. But then, of course, the future analysis will suss out is that too much activation of the city network. At this stage, we're recommending to move forward, but this one is the only difference between Boulevard 2 and Boulevard 1. So the one-way component through the city. Very similar. The renderings are. The view plans really don't change with this because what we chose for visualizations really didn't change between Boulevard 1 and 2. So this is very, very similar to the first. So then Boulevard 4 was the next one to move forward. This one is the key feature to note is the Dunn Memorial Bridge moving a mile south to tie in at the Port of Albany and through some vacant land on the city of Rensselaer side. This is the most drastic relocation of the Dunn Memorial Bridge. It does provide a direct connection to the bridge and the boulevard system via the Port of Albany Road. And it would also eliminate an on-ramp or access point at South Pearl Street in the vicinity of the Ezra Prentice neighborhoods. So then this one shows the drastic reduction of infrastructure footprint in the vicinity of where the Dunn occupies today. Then it seems similar on the Rensselaer side. There is nothing that we shed from this viewpoint where you're currently looking at the ramps touching down. Interstate 2 is the first reconstruction of an interstate we cooked up. Interstate 1 was just rehabilitation, which didn't make it through the filter. This reconstruction envisions a single point urban interchange. And similar to the Boulevard 1 or all the boulevards, the traffic is able to touch down to South Pearl Street and Boulevard into the Empire Plaza, where the Southbound Expressway is today. And similarly, it reconstructs the Dunn Memorial Bridge just to the south of the existing line. And as you can see, this has some reduction in footprint and elevation, but not as much as other concepts we've shown so far. Interstate 3, this one was born out of the initial feedback to the boulevard that moved the Dunn Memorial south. And so we decided to marry that with an interstate to see how that works. And in doing so, very similar, ties into access to the port directly to the bridge and to access the interstate system should it remain an interstate. And then the elevations and the footprint around the existing Dunn today also shrink in this one. View shed. There's still some elevated infrastructure, but not nearly to the height or complexity that we all see there today. Then, of course, we have to discuss land bridge options. A big theme that's come out of discussions around this project and connectivity and access are the land bridges and various ideas. So here's three aerial viewpoints we drew up as concepts. And then next one, we show that both the northern location of a land bridge, which is at Jennings Landing, and the southern location of the land bridge around the USS Slater. As we're showing this with Boulevard 1 in this illustration, these land bridges work with everything except Interstate 2. But I wanted to show one slide showing the land bridges that could move forward as a component of any of the concepts. And the next one will show that Interstate 2 would only work with the land bridge around Jennings Landing, as the elevations don't work with the single point urban interchange and things associated with the Interstate 2 concept. So only one of the land bridges works in this. And then, of course, with all of the concepts, there are potential bike ped network enhancements that can be incorporated or added to any of the concepts that move forward. With the idea that, you know, here we show the existing and planned bike routes on the left, and then Interstate 2 and Interstate 3. So there'd be some city network enhancements to get some more connectivity for bike and ped. And then next one, we show the 3 boulevards moving forward and potential bike ped enhancements. I glossed over the typical sections of the boulevards that show the boulevards all have multi-use paths and whatnot within the footprint that was there. In the interest of time, I'm trying to be expedient. Show these are considerations. Other things that have come up as new considerations are the relocation of the Dunn Memorial Bridge to the south, as the Dunn is the first structure over the navigational channel that restricts the height to 60 feet. Everything from here south to New York City is 135 feet down. And some concerns have been raised by the USS Slater and Hudson River Sloop Clearwater as they both navigate up and down the Hudson River at certain timeframes. USS Slater, very infrequent, very necessary. And the Sloop Clearwater comes up a handful of times a year to the Albany Yacht Club in Rensselaer. And so these are considerations if the Dunn Memorial Bridge moves south. We have to consider these craft that are much taller than 60 feet. Again, future phases, future analysis, but things we must consider should the bridge move to the south. And of course, ever big question is how the travel times change. In the initial analysis that was released in the spring, we only looked at the destination of the South Mall. And this map is a basic heat map of travel time changes that max out at about a 5 to 6 minute travel time change for isolated pockets to the north and east of the corridor. And in that, we decided there were probably a couple more locations we should look at travel time impacts, because the South Mall is a little unfair since you don't have to touch a city street to get in and out of the South Mall location. So we also analyzed travel time. We chose the Palace Theater downtown. We tried to pick landmarks that all of the public knows. The Palace Theater, because you have to touch down and hit the city grid to get to it, the travel time impact is much less impactful, less severe. 2 to 3 minutes in certain pockets of the city of Rensselaer to get over to the Palace Theater.
Can you do one for hospitals?
In the future, probably, and I think that becomes almost necessary.
Yeah, because it's like, I know they wanted to get rid of the maternity ward in Webster County, so everybody would have to go that way, so changing that would definitely change.
Yeah.
Not done.
In a future, in the EIS, I understand hospital are definitely part of it, even though
Yeah.
they're not immediately adjacent to the corridor.
Yeah.
Also part of it.
Yeah, we're losing a lot of health thing and they're sending us to Albany, so it's like, that becomes important. And I know it affects Albany, but it does affect more than Albany.
Oh, yeah. Sure. But as you see, and then the other one, Palace Theater, and then,
I think you'd also have to make sure though that, because the route from Troy to Albany Med avoids this. we send people on 90 and then through the park is how the ambulances are supposed to go.
I think I followed when my mother went there, I think it went the other way around.
Oh, really?
I mislabeled the slide. This is to the train station, so my apologies. The title says Palace Theater still. This is the travel time to the Albany Rensselaer train station. So logically, being on the other side of the river, the most drastic increase in travel time. is Albany side, again, but minor in comparison. 2 minutes is the max difference in time, so. Then, of course, we have to touch on the, I guess I call them major concepts that we're recommending not to move forward. The rehabilitation of 787 to restore it to a state of good repair for 20 or 30 years. It didn't meet the objectives. The one-way boulevards with a relocated railroad. Really, it's the relocation of a railroad is an infeasible, unreasonable part of the concept. In order to support, the economy and freight. Freight is a major component of the region. The tunnel, as discussed in various sessions and reports, is would handle about 20% of the traffic. So to handle the other 80%, you need another one of the major concepts on top of the tunnel still, so. Easily, logically dismisses that one. And then to transform all of Broadway into a waterway. We dismissed as not recommended to move forward as part of our project. It doesn't meet the objectives we figured out through the process. There are standalone options that we are recommending that could move forward on their own timeline because they don't conflict with any of the other major concepts in any way. The first one is the block one, which is actually pictured in the center slide. And I'll touch on that a little bit more on the next slide. This is another idea born out of our Canalway friends that suggest restoring lot one in some fashion to, whether it's unearth the existing lot one or build some feature around it that honors the historic Erie Canal. And then in Manans, there's a little river that exists today that is currently restricted by a culvert, so there's no access for any sort of watercraft. So some desire to possibly restore watercraft like 1977 to a bridge that small craft can get under. And then in Waterville, there's a long desire to connect the south end of the Hudson Shores Park with the city with a bicycle ped connection. So we illustrate that as a concept to move forward on its own. Next slide, we drew up a couple other high-level renderings of what could happen around lot one. These don't unearth the historic block that is still there, but instead they honor it with a different sort of water feature, whether it's a park or boat access to.
Where's lot one? Okay.
So in this view, lot one is, I believe it's hard to see on this screen, but there's an outline right around here where the historic lot one was. And it goes under a building that's a business, so we heard of several people related that don't harm this business or force it to relocate, so we picked up ideas to go around it. But the old lot one is tucked under the corner of that building.
Is that over like where Huck Fit is, that guy?
Huck Finn's about here.
Okay.
The Livingston Avenue Bridge, the
South of that.
Livingston Avenue Bridge is like right here.
Gotcha, okay.
And Central Warehouse is right here.
Oh, Central Warehouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking for a point of reference. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, yeah. And of course, there's all the considerations. This is just one of several to illustrate. There's environmental justice, environmental resources, cultural resources, the rich history of the area. And with that, I went really fast because interest of all of our time. Any questions for us?
Do all options retain 787 interstate designation?
No, the boulevards would require de-designating it as an interstate.
So we lose that as a interstate
Yes.
and the funding that goes with it.
Seems as the federal highway. Things have changed with that. I don't
Oh,
know
okay.
how much it impacts.
So going back on it to 910.
Yeah. I mean, interstates are 90-10 for funding the construction, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
First, in order to find me if you have other questions.
So the next thing on our agenda, is the approval of the meeting minutes from our September 5th meeting. Should have received them in advance of the meeting. Any questions, changes?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. Sandy's gonna give us an update on our FHWA FTA certification review.
Yes, thank you. So. So yeah, thank you again. So back. Beginning end of last year through March, more or less. The Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration. Conducted our federal certification review, which occurs every 4 years here at the Transportation Council, which basically certifies in simple terms, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing to meet federal? And our site visit was held back in March. Some of you participated in those meetings, so thank you for that. The good news is we received our letter back this fall. It was actually right before our September policy board meeting, so we didn't have time to review it at that point. But we have been redesignated, and we are received 0 corrective actions, which is good news. I did want to walk through our recommendations and commendations where the recommendations we'll be using to update our Unified Planning Work Program. We'll be using them in our in-motion plan development. So just wanted to share with you folks what the team found with our work here. So regarding our Unified Planning Work Program, just as a reminder, that's the document where we identify annually all of our planning work here that the staff does and we do through consultants. And minor recommendation is reduce our carryover. Things are taking longer than they used to. And that was just one of the notes for the Transportation Improvement Program, which is our capital program. And we're going to talk about this later in the meeting. We have to continue to monitor our performance on project delivery, particularly on the unamended tip. So before we even get into changes on the tip, they take a snapshot of data from the beginning of the federal fiscal year and kind of watch what happens. And when things don't progress, it's flagged. And so we'll talk about that later in the meeting. But that's something that we're going to have to do some work on in the upcoming years. Performance-based planning and programming. We talk here about performance measures. The federal law has all these performance measures that we use to kind of track how we're doing, ranging on things from safety to pavement condition to bridge condition. And the recommendation here is, again, pretty minor, just sort of publicly post how we coordinate all of that with DOT and with CDTA. Pretty straightforward. For public participation, we were at the time of this review establishing, sort of reestablishing really our equity advisory committee, which is now live. And they wanted to, the federal team just wanted to make sure it has a role in the development of our in-motion plan, which it does and it will. So we can check that one off our list already. Our coordinated public transit human services transportation plan. This is the document that we prepare that addresses transportation needs for those with disabilities, for those who are seniors, and have other transportation needs. They really want us to sort of broaden stakeholder engagement to a wider range of providers, perhaps to help inform the development of that plan and some of the recommendations for that plan. And we've heard already from different things going on in the region that there's increased need for different types of transportation services for folks with disabilities and our seniors. So that'll be something we'll be working toward. For transit asset management, there is a little piece of the federal law which has a required element for the CDTA transit asset management plan. That apparently wasn't there. So we're going to be coordinating with staff at CDTA to make sure that's in the next version of the plan. And that piece is the evaluation component, which is just kind of monitoring how CDTA is doing related to their TAN plan. So that's something that we're going to tackle. For intelligent transportation systems and congestion management, there's a couple of thoughts regarding developing a regional concept of transportation operations or an ITS strategic plan or whatever the plan is to sort of help bridge the gap between the strategies we identified in our congestion management process and actually programming the projects. And I think, there's some proposals coming from DOT that might help address that in the upcoming tip. Also, the regional ITS architecture, which in simple terms is just sort of the ways different technologies talk to each other. Usually that is mapped and there's some procedural things in place. The current architecture is reaching the end of its useful life. And the recommendation is that the MPO, the council, should be involved in the update of the architecture with the DOT region. And we also need to, in our congestion management process, further evaluate seasonal and event-driven congestion. We don't monitor the seasonal congestion as much as we probably should. So that'll be something that we'll get into in future years. For complete streets, the focus of our regional plan, the recommendation was we should develop some kind of a regional active transportation network or consider implementing sort of a complete streets network. And that's just an idea to help prioritize different street segments in the region that we should be investing in first to make sure that they offer bike and ped treatments and also provide the building blocks toward a regional network rather than just doing it street by street, piece by piece. So that's another recommendation. Regarding climate change and sort of resilience planning and these sorts of topics, we already have in our work plan both of these topics, but developing a regional carbon reduction strategy and a resilience improvement plan. We just, due to lack of staff time this year, didn't have time to tackle these, but these are already in our work plan for future years. Do you have a question, Larry? Oh, okay. Somebody behind me have a question? Oh. I just stopped pointing. And then the planning and environmental linkage of the kinds of planning activities, much like 787, the 378 bridge study, the study going on in Schenectady area, these sort of larger infrastructure related planning studies for regionally significant projects. They recommend that we just continue to embrace that type of planning work to support the project development. Because we know there's a lot of big needs in the region. We need to continue to plug away at making sure that these projects get set up for federal funds when available. And then in terms of our commendations in the areas that they thought we excelled, they really liked our public participation and community outreach approach, that we do a variety of outreach strategies, that we have public involvement plans now for our core planning documents, and that we have made a commitment to equity through analysis, through our ADA work, our Native Nation coordination, these sorts of things. They also liked our recent regional truck parking study that we completed last year. And public transit, they really were impressed with CDTA, its post-COVID transit ridership recovery and the BRT system. So there was a lot of kudos there to CDTA. So that's just a brief overview. I know Ayla and Nicole are listening in today. I don't know if you folks wanted to express any additional comments, but I just wanted to make folks aware of what they saw from the outside looking in and how we're doing. And any questions? Okay,
Good job. Congratulations.
thank you.
And if there's no additional questions or comments, I just wanted to, again, I know the letter says thank you so much to Sandy and her staff, but it really is a very labor intensive process to prepare for these certification reviews. And so I really appreciate all the work they did coordinating with us at FHWA and FTA to make sure that the review went successfully. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay, great. Great, so we'll move on to the performance and expenditure report. I'll try to get through this quickly because I know this is dry sometimes, but again, this is another progress report that we're required to provide to Federal Transit Administration and the Federal Highway Administration. Excuse me. It basically describes, it's basically a 6-month project progress report. So we have to submit it to these folks following today's meeting. But in terms of what we've accomplished to date, we've updated our limited English proficiency, translation and interpretation procedures. As I said earlier, we relaunched our equity advisory committee, launched a new website in this time frame. We have 4 technical assistance projects that we have largely completed. We're about wrapping up on the P-card road study now. We wrapped up a regional signal timing program, which was completed earlier this year. And we worked with a consultant to field implement optimized signal timing plans in some of our congested corridors. We selected New Scotland Avenue in Albany, State Street, Erie Boulevard in Schenectady, and West Ave in Saratoga Springs to start with. And just to give you an example of what this program was able to do, on New Scotland Avenue, we looked at 18 intersections covering a 2.5+ mile area. Made some recommendations regarding leading pedestrian intervals, and some new timing plans for pedestrians, and modeling out different signal optimization options. You can see the delay that was reduced in the morning on New Scotland Avenue, modeled results. We haven't field checked this yet, but modeled results, 39% reduction in vehicle delay. Midday it was reduced potentially by 31%, and in the afternoon by 23%. So our next step with this work is to go out in the field and field check and see how we really did. And if this proves to be a successful program, we hope to bring it, along with the department's help, to all of you across the region, because there's a lot of opportunity through signal timing, which is a very low cost approach to addressing some congestion in our region that we think would be very beneficial. So we're looking forward to continuing that work. We're continuing our on-demand traffic count program, which is available to every community in the region. So if you need motor vehicle counts, bicycle pedestrian counts, trail counts, let us know. We have free services for that. We're continuing to implement, or sorry, make progress on our in-motion regional transportation plan that's being developed. On our agenda today, we're going to share with you the Complete Street Story Map, which was at this time largely completed, but it was more or less recently completed. And we have completed ADA transition plans in Troy and Boston Spa, almost have completed Guilderland at the time of the writing of this. Worked on and approved tip guidance and scoring criteria that we'll be using for the tip update this fall. Because now we're almost at winter, huh? And continuing to work on our regional Vision Zero safety action. And with the Regional Vision Zero Safety Action Plan, just so you're aware of where we're at, we had intended to do demonstration projects as part of that, and due to a clarification from federal highway and what that term actually meant in federal highway language, we've actually shifted that scope element to do concept development at 6 locations in the region for different types of safety improvements. We're also currently, I believe, doing highway safety investigations at 40 locations throughout the region. That's underway right now. And data collection for speed limit recommendations has largely been completed. And we expect there to be a lot more coming in this early part of 2025 on the Regional Vision Zero Safety Action Plan, so stay tuned on that. And then just to wrap up, we've provided a lot of technical assistance and modeling support to those Pell studies I mentioned earlier. We held a Tools of the Trade workshop for human service transportation providers earlier this year. We launched and recently received a driver mode shift survey, which I hope to share the results with this group fairly soon. Continue work on the linkage studies that have been funded, and we completed at this time the Albany Crane Street study in Schenectady. So that's kind of an overview of what we've accomplished in the last 6 months. Any questions on that?
Just my own ignorance, what exactly is a driver mode shift survey?
So we hired a firm to help us do a survey where we we're trying to get a sense from drivers of what would it take and what influences your decision making about getting and using your car. And also by extension, asking drivers who access Uber and Lyft services, and that may be in the form of transportation, going to and from a place, or Uber Eats, or other types of services like that, trying to get a sense of how often folks are using this stuff. So it's more of certainly a data collection piece, but it did yield some interesting results. Like I said, I'm going to share that with you shortly. Any other questions? I'll jump up to the nominee. This is just more of a notice. As you all know, Karma is retiring. And he has been our vice chair for many years. So we will be looking for a new vice chair next year. If anyone is interested in serving in an officer role, please let me know. This is your opportunity to get more involved here. I can tell you it's a tough assignment. I'm kidding. But the role really is just to back up the chair in case the chair can't run. So I hope to have a volunteer. If not, we'll try to reach out to some folks to see if anybody's interested in serving in this role. Sort of a heads up. Thank you for your helping us out with that. Okay. Yep. So I'm gonna turn this over to. There's Greg or Mike. I don't know who wanted to talk about the Livingston Avenue Bridge.
We just wanted to mention that the governor announced in late October that the state had got a $215 million grant to help with the construction of the Livingston Avenue Bridge. So there's a change in the tip to reflect the category of funding there, moving the funds to the category. So this doesn't require any action by the CRTC, but it's just for your knowledge. And, it's a welcome source of funding.
Congratulations.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
I just put the details on the screen for folks to review. The $215 million award is reflected here in this FRA category, which reduces the state funds that were originally assigned to the project. So we're just sharing that as information.
And that combines with the 90 million of off-system bridge funding and the 3 million for the Rensselaer multi-use pad. So. Yes, we're quite thankful.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah.
Since we had no tip amendments officially, which I think is the first time in 40 years, we thought we would still have a tip discussion.
so this will be the first time in 3 years that I haven't had to meet with somebody from the Federal Rail Administration during the U.S. Conference of Mayors to say, please give us money for the Livingston Avenue Bridge. So, I don't know what I'll do with that free time, but thank you.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I did skip over the policy and planning, policy board and planning committee schedule. So this is obviously available on our website, just for a reminder. This is the proposed schedule for next year. For those of you that also serve on our planning committee, please note that there have been some changes for the January and February meeting dates due to the Saratoga County Planning and Zoning Conference, and also due to the placement of New Year's this year, which happens to be Wednesday. So just note those changes in the schedule. Right. Tip. All right, so we have that shared with you folks, some of what's going on with the Transportation Improvement Program updates. So we thought we would take some time today, since we had it, to go over some of the details with you. So in terms of the general outline of the update of the capital program, we received the funding targets from NISDOT in October, and we issued a new project solicitation that not long thereafter, right around the same time. Those applications are actually due tomorrow. So we're right getting into the thick of it here. While we're navigating getting new projects proposed, we are working to resolve the status of the existing projects And there was a deadline sent to all of the sponsors to submit updated information to us by December 13th. So if your community has not yet done so, we will be following up with you very, very shortly because we do need this information, and what I'm about to show you will explain why that is so important to us. We anticipate selecting new projects and programs in January and February with the planning committee. And then in March of next year, we'll be bringing a draft capital program for you to review, to act on and release to the public for public review, and ultimately we'll finish it up following public review at the June meeting. So just some funding themes on the new projects. Safety is really being emphasized this time around, and the Highway Safety Improvement Program fund source is one that we feel may be most likely available to fund new things. And a particular emphasis is being put on the department on vulnerable roadway users, pedestrians, cyclists, etc. So those types of projects are really being encouraged. The new program is also going to have a strong emphasis on the National Highway System, or the NHS system. So that's your higher order roads, your interstates, your major roads like Central Avenues, Route 146 in Clifton Park, these kinds of roads, and bridges. And we're moving away from a bridge maintenance sort of program, if you will, where we're sort of doing projects to extend the life of the bridges, to now full on replacing bridges because they are at that point. DOT is also proposing some new programs or set-asides, as we refer to them here, on focusing on signal replacements, which would be open to any sponsor who owns a signal, not just state-owned roads. And potentially an ITS consultant to help with the signal coordination and maybe identifying some best technologies for some of our congested corridors. So again, trying to address some of these congestion issues in some of the areas of the region, as well as pedestrian safety. Continuing to support that, as well as ADA compliance. So those are sort of the big picture themes that we see for the new, anything being proposed new to the tip. As a reminder, if you're an existing project sponsor, and you had what we call a design only project, which means you only were authorized funding through us 3 years ago for a design, you will need to submit a new application for the construction funds. So we wanted to make that clear to everyone. We're also kind of encouraging sponsors based on project delivery, which I'll get into, to consider if you don't have the local capacity to manage these projects internally through staff, to put project administration dollars in your proposal. And a best guess in terms of how you can do that is maybe 10% of your design cost, just as an estimate, because that might help with sort of the project management side if that's been a challenge for some community sponsors in the past. And we may have to give, when we see how everything shakes out, we may be giving higher priority for new project funds to be assigned to sponsors who may not already have existing projects, because there's so many projects that have not yet been completed, yet to be putting out when we see what's the status of the existing projects are. So as I mentioned, an email was sent in November to all the sponsors. We're looking for cost, scope, and schedule updates by December 13th. We want to confirm the dates of any obligated project phases, with particular interest on the construction phases. Anything that's been obligated for construction is going to, quote, roll off the tip, so it won't be included in the new document. Unobligated projects are going to be placed in the new tip, but the money doesn't come with the project. So if you had a $10 million project in our current tip, that $10 million doesn't move into the new tip. That $10 million gets spent somewhere else in the state if it's not done. And that's an important consideration when you think about the project delivery in our region. We'll also make sure that the existing program, that those projects are funded first before we get into anything new. And then the remaining funds will be used to fund new initiatives and some of these set-aside proposals that are on the table. In terms of how much funding we're expected to receive, remembering these are targets, these are estimates. Yeah.
One question, when you say if we don't spend it, it would get spent somewhere else in the state. If there are projects other places in the state that don't get spent, do we have the mechanism in place to look to maybe recover some of that money or bring it into the region?
Yeah, I mean, Greg, you kind of explain that.
That's basically what's been happening with this table. For a year or two now, we've been just funding overages without offset. Because other locations aren't spending. As much as project delivery has been an issue. As far as number of projects delivered, the inflation has chewed up the money and then some. Now. Simple steps.
Thank you.
Sure. So in this table that I'm showing you, there's a lot of acronyms. I apologize. We'll have time to go through all of these today, but I think the big picture item is to look at the all-in dollar value here, what we have available to program. And these are matched, so just for estimating purposes, 80% of this is federal funds, 20% is coming from a combination of state and local funds. But all in, we have roughly $482 million to assign to the existing projects that will be coming into the TIP as well as to new initiatives. I would say most of the fund sources, the funding level is similar to 3 years ago. NHPP went up slightly, and we have access to a new fund source for federal system bridges called the Bridge Formula Program. So I think the easiest way to say is that's sort of limited to mostly state-owned bridges and maybe a couple of bridges for which eligibility is local. It's primarily though a state bridge program, but it does bring some new dollars to our table. So in terms of the projected existing project roll-in, and this is why we're asking for detailed information from all the sponsors right now. Our best guess going back to September when we last rolled up the data, we anticipate over $280 million worth of projects being moved from the old TIP to the new TIP. So going back to what I just said earlier about if we don't spend it here, it goes someplace else. So in concept, those funds were spent someplace else in our state. And I've highlighted here looks like 4 fund sources. It's really 3 buckets of fund sources that are most important to the folks here at our table because these are our most competitive fund sources. The National Highway Performance Program is the NHPP. The Service Traffic Transportation Block Grant Program is the STBG, and there's different types of money, which I won't get into detail today on that. And then the Highway Safety Improvement Program, SAPIA. Those 3 sort of categories of funding come to our table and give us the best opportunity to program funds here competitively amongst all of you. When you look at historically just those fund sources and what we have gotten in terms of targets, the last couple of TIP updates, going back to 2019, we had about 334 million in those categories. With the infrastructure law that got bumped up to over 378 million. And this time around, we're estimating roughly 417 million again, in terms of the targets. But if that preliminary roll-in estimate, and preliminary is a key word here, because that was our best estimate back in September. If we roll in that level of funding, that eats over almost 55% of what was available just in these fund sources. And some of these fund sources get hit harder than others. Large urban, which is a very popular fund source for local projects. If these numbers hold, 75% is already spoken for before we've programmed anything. So, we're hoping that the exercise of finding out the data behind the existing projects will drop that down so that we have capacity to fund new things. But for comparison's sake, the last TIP we did 3 years ago, we only rolled in $86 million worth of projects. So while inflation and other factors, COVID certainly delayed the program, there's a lot of reasons, and we've had talks about this of why this could be happening. But interestingly, when you look at each of the MPOs in New York State, and I know that it looks like there's more than 14 MPOs here, but they broke out the data for the New York City area for different coverage zones, but I'm highlighting our MPO. Because the state goal on project delivery is roughly 95%, and only that handful of MPOs are able to make that. Maybe they have 1 or 2 projects that they can deliver. Our MPO, we're at, based off the number of projects for which construction is obligated, we're at 28%. And then for the cost, so based on the dollar value of those projects, we've delivered 40% of the dollar value we programmed. What that means when you look at this table in context is we're not doing so good. And it is more than just inflation. There are other factors in place. We had a lengthy discussion with sponsors here in November. And we're trying to pull together some more information on the reasons behind that. Staff capacity was noted. We've had a lot of staffing changes at the state level, local government level, all throughout the region. Material shortages, so it's been harder to deliver projects for that. There's a whole host of reasons. So what we're going to try to do is do our best as an MPO to help you folks move these projects along, whatever that's going to mean or take is we're still working on. I just wanted to alert you to this. It was important for the policy board to understand this. Because it affects everybody. And again, every dollar that doesn't get spent here is getting spent someplace else. And that's a pretty big chunk of money if that number holds. $200 million didn't get spent here. And I don't think anybody wants to see that. So that's all I wanted to say about the tip, but I think when we meet again in March, we'll have more information on that existing roll-in. I'm hoping that number comes down and not go up, but as you know, a lot of those projects, inflation wasn't factored in. There are other things that haven't been factored in yet, so it could end up being a higher number, which would be concerning in terms of new things. So I just wanted to provide that context, and I'm happy to answer any questions. It's a little sobering, I know, but sorry to be a little bit of a downer here, but but it's important you guys heard that. I'll move on to the next item, which is our Unified Planning Work Program. And was hoping to have more to discuss today, but frankly, I'm waiting on DOT. Usually we have by now the guidance and our funding targets for planning, but they have not provided those to us. For the record, this is the latest I've known that they haven't done that, so I'm not sure what's going on in the main office, but we're hoping to get this information soon. Because we did solicit and planning study proposals are also due tomorrow. We're emphasizing our linkage program and our ADA transition plans in the solicitation. And what we're hoping to do is fund one of each type at minimum. And until I see the guidance and the funding levels, maybe we can do more. I'm not sure. And we'll have a draft UPWP going to our planning committee for review and public release for public review at the end of January, and we'll be bringing it back to you folks in March for approval. But some initial proposals that I wanted to highlight, and you should know if you have concepts that might have a regional impact that we should be thinking about for our planning work here, we would love to hear them. Some of what we're envisioning in terms of where we're going next year, we're going to update our regional travel demand model and the household travel survey that underlies that. So that is going to be a multi-year big effort. Our model is pretty valued by DOT in particular. We're looking to possibly expand the reach of the model to include surrounding counties. Now that CDTA is operating in different counties, we're going to collaborate with our friends in Washington and Warren County up at the AGFTC MPO as well to cover that area. So hopefully the model will be able to do more than just the 4 counties that we've traditionally done here, and better reflect some of the commuting patterns that we're seeing now through the census data. So that's going to be a big effort. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be pursuing a carbon reduction strategy document and building a resilience plan. The Western Avenue situation at Stuyvesant Plaza always comes up when I bring this up. So hopefully this document can help document the problems and maybe lead us to some solutions at least from the transportation side. Clearly, we're gonna be spending a lot of time next year finishing our long-range plan, our TIP, and the Vision Zero safety action plans, and some of our linkage planning studies. So again, a lot of carryover work. We'll be updating our environmental justice and Title VI analysis document after we conclude the update of those other documents. The congestion management process, I said earlier, in terms of the signal work and sort of data refresh, what are the next steps? Those will be things that we'll be focusing on. The over-dimensioned truck planning effort and or technical assistance work. We're still in discussions with DOT on what that might mean. If you're not familiar with what I mean by that is moving very, very large things like wind turbines is very hard to do in our region. And it's taking days to get from Schenectady GE to the ports in Albany County. So what can we do here to address these issues? That's something we're gonna be looking at. And then in partnership perhaps with CDRPCs, looking more at the housing issues in our region, putting some more data together and some more information on development of new housing options, development patterns entirely, maybe creating some new resources. So there's just some initial proposals, but if there's anything that's been on your mind from a transportation perspective that either isn't mentioned here or you have never heard us mention in the past, we'd love to hear what those are. Because we can maybe fit some things into our work plan for the upcoming year. And that's all I wanted to share now. Keep going?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, we're getting there.
we're getting there.
I gotta light the city Christmas tree, so. we're
Okay.
updating.
Got it. All right.
Gotta get to the finish line.
So turn it over to Carrie to share the Complete Streets story maps. Please, so.
Kathy, Emmer, and Jim Levy are here to present the results of the resources that they were able to put together for what we're kind of internally here calling the Complete Streets Best Practices resource. So they put it together. Madison at CDRPC actually loaded it all into the story map format for us. Also wanted to know that Chris Wallen, John Scavo, Laura Robertson, and also Tom Houlihan were able to provide us with some video testimonials that are included here in the story map. We're not going to play any because I am aware that the audio will not play for the people listening virtually. But Kathy's going to run through otherwise what the resources are.
Thank you. Thanks, Carrie. So my name is Kathy Ember. I'm founding principal of Planning for Places. And we're really thrilled to be able to work on this with the Capital, with the Transportation Council, and to develop online streets resources. I just want to thank Carrie and Teresa from the Transportation Council and Madison from CDRPC for working on this with us, and also our sub-consultants, Sam Schwartz and JMT as well. And Sandy, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down, I'll talk about the story map in a little bit more detail. So the story map links to several videos. There's 28 videos, writing resources, and the 7 testimonial videos within that from the town of Clifton Park, and town of Niskuna, city of Rensselaer, and the city of Schenectady. And thanks Tom and others for being so willing to record a video with us. So the story map itself is broken into 5 sections. There's what are complete streets, why complete streets adoption, regional examples, and learn more. And if you wouldn't mind clicking on what are complete streets, that'd be great. So it starts with, before that, there's a discussion about the Transportation Council, and then it starts with a definition of complete streets and a nice graphic from the National Complete Streets Coalition. And then it talks about why complete streets, talking about the complete streets approach and benefits of complete streets like equity and walkability and health and safety. And all these images, by the way, are Capital Region examples, either something photos we took or photos from the Capital Region Complete Streets Design. And then in the Complete Streets Adoption, we highlight all the local Complete Streets policies. If you scroll a little bit further down, when they started being adopted in 2009 through 2017. We also have a graphic that the National Complete Streets Coalition has that shows nationally when complete streets policies adopted. And then if you look at the regional examples, you'll see, you can actually hit the minus side on the map. So we can scroll out a little bit, see all the points. So what we did was we took points on the map throughout the region of some great complete streets installations. Each point basically has summary information on the location. It might have an image, it might have one of those videos, for example. There may be, you know, our thought was that we wanted to make sure we showed a variety of complete streets types of infrastructure and a variety of geographic locations. And our intention is that this map can be updated as new complete streets installations are installed, or if people have suggestions. It's a really great place. You can add a photo, you could add some summary information about the location, and people can view everything in Capital Region. You wouldn't mind maybe clicking on J Street and Schenectady, show you what it looks like. So you can zoom into the Schenectady area. J Street, so a little toward the.
Oh, J.
Yeah, there you go. Great. So you'll see when you click on each one, there might be a video, in this case, the Schenectady testimonial. There's the arrow actually at the top has another image of the improvement. There's information on the owner and who may be speaking if there's a testimonial and a summary. And some of them have videos associated with them and some of them don't. We also have, all these videos are housed on the Transportation Council's YouTube channel. There's a complete streets playlist, so you can actually watch all of them as well. And so they're intended to be somewhat short videos to give people a sense of what the various infrastructure is. So we have an introduction. If you scroll down to learn more, there's an introduction. Yeah, learn more at the top, yeah. And then scroll down a little bit. So there's an introduction video that highlights the Capital Region Complete Streets Design Guide. And then if you keep going down, there's different categories. There's videos about pedestrian facilities, bicycle facilities, transit facilities, traffic calming, and then a category that talks about demonstration projects and other facilities. All these videos, we're trying to highlight as many Capital Region photographs and examples as we can. So beyond what's on that map that you saw. And then if there's something that isn't available in this region, but we want to explain what that infrastructure is, there might be some national examples. So when you do click on the videos, and we're not doing that today, you'll hear an audio giving the presentation for those particular videos. Does anyone have any questions? Would like to see anything?
Where do you go online to
Design this.
find it?
So right now the story map is being
Don't.
checked.
It's almost, there's one more bug that we're trying to work out. That we actually didn't click on today, so you won't see it.
There'll be a press release with
We
the link
will.
with when it's available.
But the videos are actually already on the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
So you can
they're
actually watch
actually
them.
live. That's the only way to get them into the map. They're on the Transportation Council YouTube link, and I made a separate playlist. It's called like Complete Streets. But once we finalize it, we'll put a link to it on the website and our website and do impressions.
Yeah, this is really meant to be a celebration of all of the great work that's been done over the past 10, 15, even 20 years in some cases. And sometimes we get into the weeds here on, you know, meeting federal requirements or dealing with our day-to-day work. But this was an attempt to really kind of celebrate the wins that we've had in the region for safety, for complete streets, for cyclists, for pedestrians. It's a lot of good work. So hopefully it'll be a resource that you all can use when you're talking about complete streets in your communities moving forward.
And if someone's saying, oh, has anyone done any RFPs for Taylor Road Fashion Beacons? You know, you could go and look at some examples about a two-way cycle track, new curb ramps, all those things are highlighted here to help you kind of talk about it and celebrate it, and also be a resource.
Thanks. Good job. All right, as we go through our reports, Sandy, did you have anything else from the Transportation Council?
I just wanted to mention two things real quick. One is we have on our motion plan, expect a survey to be opening soon. So I'll be seeking your help to promote the survey. And then secondly, save the date if you're interested in our MPO conference in Syracuse, May 13th through the 14th. This is open to any practitioner who works in transportation. We have a great turnout from state DOT, but save the date, and whether it's you yourself or your staff might be interested in attending. I just wanted to make that note, that opportunity was there.
Larry?
On behalf of the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, pleased to report that we had a phenomenal workshop at Hudson Valley Community College back in October. More than 200 people attended our planning and zoning workshop, and of course, it's important to emphasize, that nexus between transportation and land use planning, that those things need to be looked at holistically. And beyond that, the Regional Planning Commission has completed its draft of the Regional Broadband Feasibility Study. And that study will be used to support future grant applications by which we will seek funding to expand fiber optic capabilities throughout the region, particularly in areas that are currently underserved. Lastly, we're continuing to work with our partners in the development of an EPA-funded comprehensive climate action plan, and we are on target to complete that climate action plan by September of 2025.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Larry?
Yeah, just a couple things for us. You may have seen that we are opening mobility hubs across the region. There are sort of our version of Complete Streets. Actually, they're integrated with Complete Streets. The first one is actually a large hub. It's connecting the base of State Street called Gateway Hub. We recently opened one in Troy in the Little Italy section. Basically, we bring together buses, bikes, cars, charging stations, comfortable places to wait, attractive places to wait for those facilities. The next one that we are open, it's actually just about done, is on Manning Boulevard at St. Peter's Hospital. Working on that for a long time. A lot of cooperation behind these things. Interaction with city, city of Albany. I think we're going to make that area better for pedestrians, better for buses, and better for traffic. Really happy about that. You may have also read that we are buying the Gazette building. We hope to close there and be a bigger part of the city. We're closing actually the 17th and the 18th. So we'll take what is now an 8-acre facility and turn it into a 16-acre. We have to be located right next to it. So it'll be 8 acres to 16 acres, and we'll over time rehabilitate Gazette to a regional center for training, innovation, and things of that nature. In addition to being one 75 buses. I was really pleased to see that the auditors noted our ridership gain and success with BRT. I've had this game for a long time. We'll finish this year with 18 million, maybe 19 million boardings, which is 20% more than last year. The year before that, we were 20%. We've been 20% more every year since the pandemic started. We now, in upstate New York, we are now leading the pack. We passed Rochester, we passed Buffalo. Buffalo used to have 10, 12 million more boardings. We did just 10 years ago. We now will probably have 3 or 4 million boardings. What does that mean? There's more focus, there's more opportunity for funding, there's more opportunity for expansion. So really proud of that. I'm glad that they were here. So.
Hey, Carl, a few weeks ago, we I participated with Mayor McCarthy workshop that was sponsored by the Transportation Council in developing concepts for the 2025-2050 plan. And actually, it was a new term to me that the mayor had, which was micro mobility. That last step is there a nexus, and I think there is, between the BRT route and the mobility hub that services that need that last step on micro mobility?
Well, all mobility hubs are gathering spots for buses, bikes, which are the last mile alternative. Drive, our car share program. If we are ever to get a scooter program off the ground, we're still working on that. So it integrates that micro mobility, our flex service, all of those types of things that we promote and market separately are all housed at the Ability Center. And they're not big, they're not expensive, they're quick. We got the St. Peter's one up, it wasn't the fact that we couldn't get the parts to build the shelter. We get them done in about 3 months. So it's the same concept. We're bringing a lot of these things that we talk about at the table together. We work really closely with the staff here. We have a long laundry list of about a dozen other locations.
Well, I know we have a tree to light, so.
If God forbid you get into that. We had a project that we've been trying to put out to bid twice now. This is a bridge preservation project that we've had no bidders. For the second time, it appears that we had too many sites with labor intensive work, so we're gonna break it down into smaller. A couple of different projects and hopefully get some bids, because it's just, I think it's too much work for one firm to take on. Other than that, the governor announced a pay increase 2 days ago, which DOT is the biggest beneficiary of. It's for licensed professionals, engineers, architects, surveyors, geologists. Looks like a $7,000 increase for people in the Albany area. But anyone with any of those licenses in the state titles will be getting a GeoPay raise. And it's effective today, actually. So it affects 1,600 DOT people statewide. And we've had a hard time recruiting licensed professionals because our pay wasn't competitive. So this got pushed through civil service and division of budget, and it affects other agencies as well, but DOT has the most licensed professionals in the engineering field. So that hopefully will help with our recruitment efforts. That's it. Right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. We don't have anybody from the airport, Christine.
So we are, for our pad ready for the 80-acre expansion. We've completed the Norman skill work, and we just have a few punch list items to be complete with the bridge over the Norman skill that connects the port with the 80 acres. So it's exciting time for the port.
Great. Good. Any other business?
I just want to mention Saratoga County has their annual planning and zoning conference. Will be on Wednesday, February 5th at the city center. Several hundred people attend, and it's a way to meet the New York State requirements for annual training for zoning and planning board members. So it'll be 16 courses over 4 sessions.
I have one thing for other business. This is Harm's last meeting. So both Sandy and I have some little presentations for you. Sandy, you want to go first?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, Carm, I've been a longtime supporter of the Transportation Council ever since, well, ever since forever, right? I've been listening to you a long time.
I'll give you a 1-minute summary on that.
But you know, this is just an appreciation of your support for me personally, for what we do here as a planning organization. I just want to thank you for your service to us. I was not able to stay at your retirement soiree.
Let's play the soiree.
So I wanted to present you with this proclamation from the city of Albany talking about really the incredible work that you've done to make this a transit system that we can all be proud of. And I don't like to do this early in the day because, you know, you still have a lot of time that you could cause trouble. But I am declaring today to be Carmzil Day in the city of Albany. But thank you. It's been great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, so guys, real quick, I was introduced to this organization 43 and a half years ago.
You're like 5 years old.
The people who hired me, were active here at the regional table, and basically they let me tag them. I was a transportation planner, I was hired as a planner, so that's my background. And I tagged along. I was told to sit, I remember, sit there and just listen. I came to every meeting and I listened. I got this appreciation for what is done at this table. Like all of you, I go to a lot of meetings and meet with a lot of people. I hear a lot of things. I hear that, you know, this region doesn't work together and we don't cooperate. This table refutes that. Politics are checked at the door, personal interests are checked at the door. Yeah, sometimes we argue, sometimes we disagree. But it's amazing to me to watch this group and yeah, Cindy had a bear with bad news. We can fix that. We can fix that. We'll fix it because we cooperate in this region. So when people say that this area doesn't cooperate, doesn't get along, and the city, you know, is worried only about that, you know, there are need, you know, just look here, because it really is a shining example of how the region can function very, very well together. So appreciate it. I'm retiring from CDT. I'm not retiring from. You will likely see me in the next iteration of what I'm doing. Because I realize I have to work out of the state. Just I want to work at a different pace, at a different size, so to speak. So thanks, everybody. We'll appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Stand adjourned.
I just want to know if Brendan.
Yeah.